Her blood can save thousands of people, but if she continues to donate, her son will die. Who will you choose?
That night, the sky was no longer black. It burned red, like an open wound torn wide, pulsing with each long, shrieking artillery shell streaking overhead. The field medical station sat at the edge of a ruined town, thrown together from canvas sheets and steel poles hammered hastily into gravel-soaked earth. The smell of antiseptic mixed with gunpowder, forming a bitter taste that clung to the throat no matter how many times you swallowed. Emma Carter pulled her mask higher over her face, though she knew it could only cover her nose, not the fear. The fear didn't come from the explosions. Emma had lived with explosions long enough for them to fade into background noise. What frightened her was the silence between them. Those brief pauses always sent a chill through her spine, as if the war itself were drawing in a deep breath before tearing into flesh once more. "Emma! Over here!" a young nurse shouted, her voice nearly breaking. Emma turned and rushed toward a stretcher being carried inside. The man on it was barely recognizable beneath his shredded uniform, soaked dark with blood. His eyes were open but empty, staring straight through everything. Emma didn't ask which side he was on. In this place, that question had lost all meaning. Blood flowed the same way. Pain did too. "Tourniquet now," she ordered, her hands already moving. "Pulse is weak. Stop the bleeding first." She pressed 2 fingers to the soldier's wrist. The pulse was almost gone. Emma bit her lip and forced her voice to stay steady. "We're going to keep you here," she said. "You hear me? You're going to be okay." There was no response, only distant artillery and the low moans of the wounded nearby. Emma leaned closer, examining the abdominal wound. A shard of metal was lodged deep inside, nearly impossible to remove with the tools they had. "I need a doctor," she shouted. A figure rushed into the tent, white coat stained with old blood. Dr. Liam Hayes. Dark circles ringed his eyes, the look of a man who hadn't truly slept in days. "He's losing too much blood," Emma said quickly. "If we don't transfuse right now." "There's no blood left," Liam cut in, his voice hoarse. He looked at her with an apology already forming before he spoke again. "The cold storage was hit this morning. What's left is only enough for 2 critical cases." Something hot surged up Emma's spine. Not anger at Liam, but at the absurd cruelty of war, the way it forced people to measure lives like rationed grain. "Then take donors from the camp," she said. Liam shook his head. "Not enough. And many are malnourished. Another donation could kill them." Emma swallowed hard, her eyes drifting to the row of stretchers. So many of them were young, too young to have lived a full life. She had once sworn she would save everyone. On nights like this, that oath felt like a fairy tale. A massive explosion rocked the tent. The hanging fluorescent light flickered violently. Dust rained down onto Emma's shoulders. "Artillery's closer," a guard yelled from outside. "Everyone down. Prepare to move." Emma stayed bent over the patient. She couldn't leave him. Not while those empty eyes were still open. Liam touched her shoulder. "Emma, we have to." "Wait," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Just 1 more minute." But war waits for no one. A high-pitched whistle cut through the air. So fast her mind couldn't process it. Instinct threw her to the ground. The earth erupted. A blinding white flash, then darkness. Sound collapsed into a thick underwater roar. Emma felt a heavy impact against her chest, followed by sharp pain tearing through her side. The air was ripped from her lungs. She tried to breathe but only tasted dirt and burning metal. She heard someone calling her name from far away. "Emma! Emma!" Hands dragged her across rubble. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment. Liam's face hovered above her, smeared with blood and dust. His mouth moved, but her ears rang too loudly to hear. She wanted to tell him she was fine, that she just needed to stand up and keep going. But her body betrayed her. She felt warmth spreading across her back. Blood. Her own blood. No, not now. In that moment, one image cut through the chaos more clearly than any explosion. Noah. Her son. Brown, unruly hair. Bright eyes. The way he called Mom whenever he was scared. Noah was somewhere else, far from this battlefield. At least Emma believed he was. She had sent him away to what she thought was a safer place with a distant relative. But war swallowed every safe place, the way it swallowed promises. Emma reached for Liam's hand, her fingers trembling. "Don't leave them," she murmured, not sure who she meant, the wounded or Noah or herself. Liam leaned close. This time his voice broke through the ringing in her ears. "I'm here. Can you hear me? You've lost a lot of blood. I have to get you inside." Emma wanted to laugh, but it hurt too much. "I'm just a nurse," she whispered. "Don't waste blood on me." Liam didn't answer. He motioned to two soldiers, and they lifted Emma onto a stretcher. Above her, the sky spun, red and black bleeding into each other. As they rushed her toward the inner tent, the one better shielded their makeshift operating room. Emma caught the eyes of several soldiers. Some looked at her like a comrade, others like a miracle slipping through their fingers. She didn't know why, but a strange certainty settled over her. This moment wouldn't just decide whether she lived or died. It would decide her life. Inside, Liam and the medical team moved with frantic precision. Emma heard fragments. Blood pressure dropping, prep transfusion. There's no matching blood left. Even O-type is almost gone. Emma closed her eyes. She thought of Noah, of his small hand clutching her sleeve during blackouts, of the promise she always made. Mom will always come back. How many times had she kept that promise? And this time, would she get the chance? A needle pierced her skin. Cold. Then something began flowing into her vein. Emma opened her eyes. Liam was staring at the bag as if it were impossible. His brow furrowed. Then he snapped to a nurse. "Run compatibility again," he said sharply. "Check it. Now." His voice was no longer just that of a doctor trying to save a patient. It was the voice of a man who had just seen a secret. Emma wanted to ask what was wrong, but her throat burned dry. She barely registered Liam drawing another vial of her blood. Emma woke beneath a pale, washed-out light. Neither morning nor night. It was the kind of timeless glow that existed only in field hospitals, where any sense of day or darkness had long been crushed by artillery fire and human suffering. Her throat burned dry. Each swallow felt like sand scraping against raw skin. She tried to move, but her body responded slowly, heavily, as if it no longer fully belonged to her. The first thing Emma noticed was her left arm. It was connected to 2 lines. Not 1, 2. She blinked, forcing her vision to focus. One clear bag flowed steadily into her vein. That was normal, necessary. But the second line ran outward. It led to a blood bag that was slowly filling with her blood. Emma's eyes widened. "No!" she whispered, her voice so hoarse she could barely hear herself. She turned her head, scanning the tent. This one was larger than the emergency station. There were machines, monitors. A soldier stood guard at the entrance. This was no longer a purely medical space. "Is anyone here?" she tried to call out. A figure stepped forward. Liam. But not the Liam she knew, the exhausted doctor with slumped shoulders and hollow eyes. The man standing before her now was tense, cautious, as though he were standing beside something fragile that might explode at any moment. "You're awake," he said slowly. Emma met his gaze. "Why is my blood being taken?" Liam was silent for several seconds, long enough for Emma to understand. The answer wasn't simple. "We had to confirm it," he said at last. "And once we did, everything moved beyond my control." "Confirm what?" Emma asked, her heart beginning to race. Liam pulled a chair closer and lowered his voice. "Your blood is compatible with every sample we tested. No adverse reactions. No rejection. No complications." Emma shook her head weakly. "That's impossible. I'm just a nurse." Liam interrupted gently. "Yes, but you're also something this battlefield has never seen." Emma stared up at the tent ceiling, where the canvas rippled faintly with distant shock waves. She felt cold despite the sweat soaking her back. "You used my blood," she said. It wasn't a question. Liam nodded. 3 cases last night. 2 survived. 1 didn't. His wounds were too severe. Not because of the blood. 3 cases. In 1 night. And you're going to keep doing it, Emma said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Liam lowered his head. "They've reported it up the chain." They who? The answer came from another voice, calm and measured from behind Liam. I did. Emma turned her head. A man stepped into the tent. His uniform was immaculate, not a single unnecessary crease. Gray hair. Sharp eyes. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to.
Colonel Victor Kane.
Nurse Emma Carter, he said evenly. You have saved 17 soldiers in the past 24 hours. Emma frowned. I've only. Directly or indirectly, Kane continued. The result is the same. He gestured, and a soldier handed him a thin file. Kane didn't open it. He simply placed it on the table beside Emma's bed, as if its presence alone carried weight. We are critically short on blood, Kane said. Not just here. Across the entire northern front. Every day, hundreds die from blood loss, people who should have lived. Emma felt her heartbeat pounding in her chest. And you think I'm the solution? Kane looked directly at her. No. You are the opportunity. Liam stood up. Sir, Emma is still recovering. She can't. Dr. Hayes, Kane cut in calmly. You've done your duty well. The rest is mine. Liam's hands clenched, but he said nothing. Emma drew a careful breath, each inhale aching. I'm not military property. Not yet, Kane replied. But you are no longer an anonymous civilian. The words thickened the air. Are you planning to detain me? Emma asked. Kane didn't deny it. We will protect you. Provide full medical care. You will lack for nothing. In exchange, you donate a medically safe amount of blood each day. Emma let out a short, broken laugh. You make it sound fair. One life, Kane said evenly. For hundreds. The sentence hung between them like a verdict already passed. Emma closed her eyes. Images flooded her mind. Wounded soldiers clutching her sleeve, trembling hands whispered please. She had come here to give herself away. But not like this. When can I leave? She asked, opening her eyes again. Kane paused just a fraction too long. For now, he said. You cannot. Emma turned to Liam. How long have you known? Liam avoided her gaze. Since the third compatibility test matched. And you didn't tell me. I didn't have the authority. Emma smiled bitterly. No one ever does, until they take what they need. Kane stepped closer. You're a hero, Emma Carter. That's what they're calling you already. Heroes don't have locked doors, Emma replied, glancing toward the armed guards. Kane exhaled softly, as though addressing a stubborn child. War doesn't offer beautiful choices. But it doesn't give you the right to turn me into a prisoner. Kane studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. You need time to understand. He turned toward the guards. Increase security. No one enters without authorization. When Kane left, silence returned, broken only by the steady monitor beep and the soft drip of blood filling the bag beside Emma. She looked at Liam. Are you helping me? Or are you with them? Liam swallowed. I'm with the survivors. Does that include me? The question stopped him cold. I won't let them hurt you, he said finally. Emma glanced at the dark red bag beside her. They don't need to hurt me. They just need to use me. The days that followed blurred together. Every morning her vitals were checked. Every afternoon her blood was taken. Every night, she heard reports of lives saved by the special blood source. They brought her better food, better medicine, a real bed, but the door was always locked. At first, Emma told herself, I can endure this. Then I should endure this. Finally, do I have any choice at all? On the fifth day, her body began trembling when she stood. A young soldier was rushed into the adjacent tent, hemorrhaging badly. Emma heard a doctor call her name. Prepare donation. She closed her eyes and extended her arm out of habit. That was when she heard two soldiers whispering outside. They say her son's trapped in the eastern residential zone. Really? Yeah. Artillery's scheduled to hit that area. Emma's eyes flew open. My son? She demanded, forcing herself upright despite the dizziness. Who said that? The soldiers froze. One stammered. We heard it in a report. Which report? Emma snapped. Tell me. Liam rushed in. Emma, calm down. No, she shouted, for the first time since being detained. Tell me where my son is. Silence crushed the tent. Liam looked at her, and in his eyes Emma saw the one thing she feared most. Confirmation. Her legs gave way. She collapsed back onto the bed, fists gripping the sheets. Every principle, every statistic, every faceless life she had weighed until now shrank into a single point in her chest. Noah. And for the first time Emma understood. The news about Noah did not arrive like an explosion. It came quietly, slipping into Emma's bloodstream, cold and slow like a colorless poison. She didn't scream. She didn't faint. She didn't beg, not right away. She simply sat there, motionless on the hospital bed, staring into the narrow space between two layers of canvas where light bent into pale gray shapes. Noah was trapped in the eastern residential zone, the area marked in red on every military map. A place described in the language of war as acceptable losses. Emma knew exactly what that phrase meant. She had heard it too many times in emergency medical briefings. It meant, not worth saving. Her hand trembled slightly as she clenched the sheet. Inside her mind, memories of Noah surfaced, disconnected yet cruelly vivid. Mornings when he refused to get out of bed. His quiet laughter when she pretended to be stern. The way he always turned back to look at her whenever she left the house. Mom will come back. How many times had she said that? The tent door opened. Liam stepped inside and closed it quickly behind him, as if afraid someone might overhear. He looked at Emma, and in that moment she knew, he didn't just know about Noah. He knew what came next. Have you confirmed it? Emma asked. Her voice was disturbingly calm. Liam nodded. Recon reports. That area will be shelled within 24 hours. 24 hours. A clean, emotionless number. Is there an evacuation plan? Emma asked. Liam didn't answer right away. He removed his glasses, rubbing his face with both hands like a man exhausted from pretending to be a doctor for too long. The priority is holding the defensive line, he said quietly. Civilians aren't on the list. Emma let out a dry laugh. So that's a no. He stepped closer. Emma, I'm trying. No, she interrupted, her voice hard now. You're trying to save the war, not the people. The word stopped him. His mouth opened, then closed again. Emma took a slow breath. Her body was weakening by the day. Blood was taken regularly, precisely, safely, according to every medical guideline. But no guideline measured what it felt like to be drained of more than just blood. I want to see Colonel Kane, she said. Liam frowned. That's not a good idea. I'm not asking. The meeting took place that afternoon, inside a reinforced tent framed with steel. A large battle map covered the table, crowded with red and blue markings. Kane stood with his back to her when she was brought in, 2 guards stationed by the door. You wanted to speak, Kane said without turning around.
I'm listening.
Emma stood straight despite the dizziness. My son is in the eastern zone. Kane turned. His expression didn't change.
No surprise. No irritación.
Just the cool acknowledgement of a man who already knew the answer. Yes. I want to leave the camp, Emma said. Today. Kane folded his arms. That's not possible. You haven't heard my terms. I've heard enough. Emma took a step forward, ignoring the guard's warning looks. I'll continue donating. I'll do everything you ask. But in return you give me an escort. A vehicle. Just enough to reach that area and get my son out. Kane studied her carefully. When he spoke, his tone was slow, instructional, like explaining a simple equation. If I let you go, the odds of you returning are extremely low. I will come back. No, Kane said, shaking his head. Once you save your child, you will never voluntarily return here. Emma didn't deny it. You're afraid of losing me. I'm afraid of losing hundreds, Kane replied. Every single day. And you're willing to let a child die for that. Kane didn't flinch. In war we don't choose between good and evil. We choose between bad and worse. Emma smiled faintly, this time without sarcasm. Only exhaustion. You call that a choice. And what do you call what you're doing? Kane asked. You came here to save lives. Now you want to walk away for one. No, Emma said clearly. I want to walk away because that one is my son. The air froze. Kane stared at her. For the first time something shifted in his eyes, Just slightly, just briefly, like a crack in steel. You're asking me to sacrifice the entire front, he said. For one child.
No, Emma replied, stepping closer.
I'm asking you to remember that we're still human. Silence stretched until Emma could hear her own heartbeat. Finally, Kane turned back to the map. The eastern zone will be hit in 18 hours, he said. Even if I let you go, you might not make it in time. Emma didn't hesitate. Then I'll leave sooner. Kane turned to face her again. His expression sealed shut. This conversation is over. The tent door slammed behind her. That night Emma didn't sleep. She sat on her bed, staring at the blood bag prepared for the next morning's donation. She thought of every person who had lived because of her blood. She didn't regret it. But for the first time, she asked a question she had never allowed herself to think before. If sacrifice has no end, is it still sacrifice? Or just exploitation? The tent door opened slightly. Liam slipped inside, quiet enough that the guards didn't notice. He won't let you go, Liam whispered. Emma nodded. I know. So what will you do? Emma looked at him. In the dim light, her eyes were no longer those of an obedient nurse. They were the eyes of a mother who had reached her final line. Do you remember what I asked you before? She said. About whose side you're on? Liam didn't answer. If I stay, Emma continued, they'll keep taking my blood. They'll save more people. But my son will die. She inhaled slowly. If I leave, people will die from lack of blood. Emma, look at me, she cut in. Liam raised his head. Which choice do you think I can live with? The question needed no answer. Liam closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had changed.
No hesitaste. No avoidance.
There's a supply vehicle leaving at dawn, he said. A secondary route. Lightly guarded. Emma stood. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. You'll face a court-martial, she said. Liam nodded. If there's anyone left to hold one. They looked at each other, both knowing there was no turning back now. Outside, the war continued to roar, indifferent to morality, to motherhood, to limits. But inside that small tent, a line had been crossed. Emma was no longer the blood source. She was a mother, and she had chosen. Dawn arrived without ceremony. It slipped through the edge of the tent as a thin, pale blade of light, slicing into the last remnants of darkness. To Emma, it didn't feel like a beginning. It felt like a cold reminder that time was still moving, and Noah was not waiting. She put on her old medical jacket, the fabric faded and stiff with dried blood and dust. Liam stood across from her, checking the small bag at the foot of the bed one last time. A few bandages, painkillers, a bottle of water, and a hastily laminated fake identification card. The truck leaves in 5 minutes, he said quietly. I altered the schedule. Told them there was a fuel storage issue. Emma nodded. She didn't ask questions. Every question now would only carve dull knives into her resolve. You don't have to come with me, she said. Liam looked at her, half a smile tugging at his face, tired and sad. If they catch you on the road, someone should at least know who you are. Emma took a deep breath. Her body felt weaker than ever. Every step carried the weight of strength left behind in blood bags hanging throughout the camp. But something stronger pushed her forward, stronger than dizziness or pain. The image of Noah running toward her, calling Mom in fear. They stepped outside the tent. The early morning air smelled of damp earth and metal. Engines rumbled in the supply zone to the west. 2 guards stood watch, one yawning, the other scanning a clipboard. Liam handed over the ID. The guard glanced at it, nodded. The side gate creaked open slowly, as if even it hesitated. Emma climbed onto the truck. As the wheels began to roll, a heavy realization settled over her. She had left the camp. No 4 lines. No guards. No numbers tracking lives saved. Only the road ahead, uneven, scarred with craters, leading straight toward the eastern zone. The truck jolted violently. Each bump made Emma wince. Liam sat across from her, gripping a metal bar. Neither of them spoke. All necessary words had been spent during the night. They hadn't gone 15 minutes when a siren wailed behind them. Emma turned. Another military vehicle was closing in, dust billowing behind it. That wasn't part of the plan, Liam said, tension sharp in his voice. The driver glanced at the mirror and accelerated. They've noticed. Emma felt her heart drop. Colonel Kane's face flashed through her mind, calm, certain, as if he had known this would happen. Gunshots rang out, not aimed at the truck. Warning shots, enough to remind them there was no turning back. Left! Liam shouted. The truck swerved onto a narrower side road, strewn with loose stones. The pursuing vehicle slowed but didn't stop. In the distance, a thunderous explosion echoed, artillery hitting the eastern zone earlier than scheduled. Emma closed her eyes for a brief second. Noah, wait for me. The truck lurched violently and stalled. The engine died. Damn it, the driver muttered. Shrapnel hit the engine. There was no time. Liam jumped down, pulling Emma with him. On foot. 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers. Under normal conditions, it was nothing. But for Emma now, it felt like an entire lifetime. They ran. The artillery grew closer. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps, her chest tightening painfully. Every pause tempted her body to surrender. Don't stop, Liam said, running beside her, glancing back. Look at me. Just look at me. Emma nodded, clenching her teeth. The eastern residential zone appeared like a massive scar. Collapsed buildings, smoke rising from multiple points, screams blending with the sounds of falling debris. There was no longer any line between civilians and battlefield. We split up, Liam said quickly. Do you know where your son is? Emma pointed toward a row of low buildings. There. The basement. Meet back here, Liam said. 10 minutes. Emma didn't answer. She was already running. She scrambled over rubble, dodging smoking fragments of walls. A shell landed nearby, the shockwave throwing her to the ground. Her head rang. Her ears buzzed. She pushed herself up. Noah! She screamed, her voice cracking. No answer. She ran again, tears mixing with dust. Ahead stood the familiar house, or what remained of it. The basement hatch was half buried beneath bricks and debris. Noah! She shouted again. A faint cough came from below. Mom! The sound shattered everything inside Emma. She lunged forward, clawing at the rubble with bare hands. Pain tore through her fingers. Blood seeped from her skin. She didn't stop. At last an opening appeared. Noah was there. Dirty. Terrified. But alive. Emma pulled him into her arms, holding him so tightly she almost crushed him. I'm here. I'm sorry. I came back. I thought you weren't coming, Noah sobbed. Emma couldn't answer. She just held him, afraid that letting go would make him disappear. A massive explosion rocked the area. A wall behind them collapsed, dust choking the air. We have to go, Liam shouted, appearing through the smoke. Emma lifted Noah and ran. After only a few steps, her legs buckled. The world spun. Her body, already drained, had nothing left. Liam caught her. Emma! She shook her head, cold sweat pouring down her face. I'm okay, just take him. No, Liam said firmly. Both of you. Engines roared. A convoy of military vehicles appeared at the end of the street. Emma looked up. In the lead vehicle, she saw Colonel Kane. Their eyes met through smoke and fire. Kane stepped out slowly. You did what you came to do. Emma tightened her grip on Noah. Did you come to take me back? Kane looked at the child, then at the collapsing buildings. No. He turned and issued a short command. Evacuate civilians. Now. Liam stared in disbelief. Emma did too. You. I lost over 100 men this morning, Kane said quietly. And I'll lose more. But if I shoot you or drag you back, I lose something else. What? Emma asked. Kane met her gaze. The thing that lets us believe we're still worth saving. He turned away. The truck in the rear. 10 minutes. Emma didn't know when she started crying. As the vehicle pulled away from the eastern zone, she looked back one last time. Smoke still rose. The war still raged. But in her arms, Noah's breathing was steady. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know how many people her blood might have saved, or how many would pay the price for her choice. She knew only this. There are limits. Limits even sacrifice must not cross. The convoy left the eastern zone after the sun had fully risen, but the light brought no sense of safety. It only revealed things more clearly. Burned out buildings. Roads torn apart. civilians being pulled onto trucks in states of shock so deep it bordered on numbness. Emma sat on the rear bench, Noah pressed against her chest, asleep from exhaustion. Every steady rise and fall of his breathing felt like a small miracle, one she was still afraid to believe in. She hadn't yet fully accepted that she was truly gone from that place. No guards outside her tent. No blood bags hanging silently beside her bed. No cold voice reminding her that one life could be traded for hundreds. But freedom did not feel light. It settled on her like a debt newly written into a ledger. When the convoy stopped at a temporary evacuation site, Emma was taken into another medical tent, cleaner, quieter, and far more discreetly guarded. No one said she was being detained, but no one said she was free to leave either. Noah was examined first. Severe dehydration, acute shock. When a nurse wrapped him in a blanket and said, "He'll be okay," Emma finally felt her legs weaken beneath her. She sank into a folding chair and for the first time in days, allowed herself to do nothing. Not saving anyone. Not deciding anything. Not sacrificing. Just sitting there. Watching her son. Liam stood at the entrance of the tent, shoulders slumped as if he had aged several years in a single morning. He didn't speak. He only gave Emma a small nod, barely noticeable, but enough for her to understand. Everything had changed. That afternoon, Colonel Kane arrived. He wasn't wearing his pristine uniform. His jacket was dust-stained, his collar open. He looked like a man who had just lost a battle that couldn't be reported in numbers. Emma didn't stand when he entered. "You and your son will be transferred to a safer zone," Kane said plainly. "Outside the combat area." Emma looked at him. "At what cost?" Kane frowned slightly. "Do you think I'm here to bargain again?" "You never do anything without a price," Emma replied. A brief silence passed. Kane nodded, conceding the point. "You will not return to the front," he said. "No more field nursing. No access to the press.
No interviews. No heroic narratives."
Emma gave a thin smile. "You're afraid of the truth." "I'm afraid of chaos," Kane corrected. "If your story spreads, people will hunt you. Other factions will want you. And some will kill you just to make sure no one else can have what they can't." Emma said nothing. She had already thought of that. The cost of being unique was always becoming a target. "And my blood?" she asked. Kane met her eyes. "We will not force you to donate again." "Not force," Emma repeated. "Yes," Kane said carefully. "But if you volunteer." Emma stood up. It was a simple movement, but it stopped Kane mid-sentence. "I've given enough," she said. "To the war. To you. To the numbers you call necessary." She bent down and adjusted Noah's blanket. "From now on, I only give to my son." Kane didn't argue. He looked at Noah, then back at Emma for a long time. Finally, he nodded. "You'll be protected," he said. "But your life won't be the same." Emma met his gaze. "My life hasn't been the same for a long time." Kane left without another word. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. Not because of artillery, this area was quieter. Not because of fear. Noah slept beside her, breathing evenly. She couldn't sleep because of the faces. The soldiers who lived because of her blood. Those who died after she left. The eyes that looked at her like a miracle, and then like property. She wondered, did I have the right to leave? Then again, if not, when would it ever end? No answer came. The next morning, a civilian doctor examined Emma. He studied her test results, then looked at her with a mix of awe and caution. "You know you're an extremely rare case," he said. "I know," Emma replied. "You could save a great many lives." Emma nodded. "But not at any cost." A few days later, Emma and Noah were relocated to a small town outside the combat zone.
No bumps. No barbed wire.
But plainclothes guards. Watchful eyes that never fully looked away. Noah slowly returned to being a child again. He played with stones, laughed at birds, asked innocent questions that tightened Emma's chest. "Mom," he asked one evening, "are you still going to save people?" Emma paused. "Yes. But you won't go away again?" She pulled him close. "I'll save people in a way that lets me come back to you." Noah thought for a long time, then nodded, as if that answer made perfect sense. News from the front reached Emma from time to time. She heard things were getting worse. Blood shortages deepening. Death tolls rising. Guilt came in waves, sometimes heavy, sometimes distant. On certain nights, she wondered if everything would be different if she returned. But every morning when Noah opened his eyes and said, "Mom," she knew she had chosen correctly. One afternoon, Liam arrived in town. He looked thinner, more exhausted, but alive. "You weren't tried," Emma said, surprised. "Not yet," Liam replied with a tired smile. "Maybe because they still need me." They sat across from each other in silence for a long time. "You don't regret it?" Liam finally asked. Emma looked out the window where Noah was playing. "No, but I don't forgive myself either." Liam nodded. "That might be the lowest possible price." When he left, Emma stood in the doorway for a long time. She understood that the war outside was far from over, but the war inside her had changed its shape. It was no longer sacrifice versus selfishness. It was responsibility versus. War does not release those who walk away from it. It simply waits longer. 3 weeks passed after Emma and Noah arrived in the small town. 3 weeks without falling bombs, without sirens, without sleepless nights of emergency triage. Life slowly reappeared in forms Emma had nearly forgotten. Real sunlight in the mornings, meals eaten without haste, nights when Noah slept without flinching at imagined explosions. But Emma knew this peace was borrowed. She felt it in the plainclothes guards who changed shifts with quiet precision, in phone calls that ended too quickly, in the way local doctors looked at her with respect and with distance. And then on an afternoon that felt unnaturally calm, the debt came due. A black vehicle with no license plate stopped in front of the small house where Emma was staying.
No siren. No escort.
Just the certainty of a decision made far away. Emma saw it through the window. She didn't need a warning. Noah sat on the floor, fitting wooden pieces together into something that existed only in a child's imagination. Emma knelt and brushed her hand through his hair. "Go play in the back room," she said gently. "Mom needs to step outside for a moment." Noah looked up. "Is something wrong?" Emma smiled, not fully, but enough to keep him from being afraid. "No, just adults talking." She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. Colonel Kane stood by the car.
No uniform. No insignia.
Just a middle-aged man with eyes accustomed to seeing things that couldn't be put into words. "You've lost weight," he said neutrally. "You didn't come to check on my health," Emma replied. Kane nodded. "No." He handed her a thin folder. No military markings. No title. Just hastily printed pages filled with images, numbers, and lists long enough to be unsettling. Emma didn't open it right away. "If you're here to ask me to return, the answer hasn't changed." "I'm not asking," Kane said. "I'm offering." Emma looked at him. "We've exhausted every alternative," Kane continued. "Blood collection from other regions. International coordination. But the Northern Front is collapsing faster than expected." He paused. "The Central Field Hospital will shut down within 10 days without a stable blood supply." Emma opened the folder. Photographs stared back at her. Overcrowded operating rooms, wounded spilling into hallways, doctors standing helplessly with lowered heads. She recognized faces, not because she remembered them, but because they all carried the same expression, waiting. "How many?" Emma asked. "If nothing changes," Kane replied, "about 1,000 within 2 weeks. 1,000. Not a number Kane used to manipulate her before. He spoke it like a weather forecast. Emma closed the folder. "And you think I'm the last solution?" "No," Kane said. "You're the only one still alive." The air thickened between them. "I won't return as a prisoner," Emma said slowly. "You won't be detained," Kane answered immediately. "No camp.
No guards. No coerción."
Emma let out a quiet laugh. "You expect me to believe that?" Kane met her gaze. "You'll donate on a schedule you approve, under civilian medical supervision, and only for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, Emma repeated. "After that," Kane said, "we'll have a replacement system in place. Less effective, more costly, but not dependent on you." Emma was silent. 6 weeks, Kane emphasized, in exchange for keeping the central hospital from collapsing. Emma glanced back toward the door behind her. She could picture Noah inside, waiting for her to return. "If I agree," she asked, What happens to my son? He stays here, Kane replied without hesitation. Outside the combat zone. Under witness protection. No one will be allowed near him. And if I refuse? Kane didn't look away. We will respect your decision. But his eyes said the rest. 1,000 people. Emma closed her eyes. In that moment she didn't see the war. She didn't see Kane. She didn't see the numbers. She saw herself years earlier, standing in front of a mirror, wondering how many people an ordinary woman could save before losing herself. She had traveled far from that question. Do you have children? Emma asked. Kane hesitated just barely. But enough. I have a daughter, he said. Would you let her grow up knowing that another mother refused to save her? If she had been one of that 1,000? Kane didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was lower. No. Emma nodded. Neither would I. She opened the door and stepped back inside. Noah looked up. Are you done, Mom? Emma knelt in front of him, placing her hands on his small shoulders. Mom has to go away for a while. Noah frowned. Again. Yes, Emma said gently, firmly. But I'll come back. And this time I'm going because I choose to. Noah thought for a moment, then wrapped his arms around her. I'll wait. Emma held him tightly, as if trying to carve his shape into her memory. When she stepped outside again, Kane was still there. I agree, Emma said. But on one condition. Kane nodded. Name it. No one calls me a hero, Emma said. No mangaments. No articles. No stories that make sacrifice sound easy. Kane studied her for a long time. Then he nodded. Agreed. The car pulled away as the sun sank toward the horizon. Emma watched the small town fade through the window. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She only felt the familiar emptiness inside her. This time it didn't swallow her whole. She wasn't returning because she was forced to save people. She was returning because she had drawn the limits of her own sacrifice. And within those limits she still chose to save. The Central Field Hospital was unlike any place Emma had returned to before. There were no flapping canvas walls trembling with nearby explosions. No flickering lights threatening to go out at any moment. This place was solid, clean, filled with modern equipment. And colder for it, a machine running smoothly where each person had a clearly defined function. Emma knew exactly where she belonged in it. Not in a hospital bed. Not in an operating room. But in a small room at the end of the corridor, furnished with only a chair and 4 stand, and a schedule posted on the wall. Week 1, Day 1. No one called her a hero. They called her by a code. One condition honored. Emma sat down and rolled up her sleeve. Her left arm was crowded with old needle marks, bruises not yet faded. A civilian doctor reviewed her chart, spoke politely, without unnecessary emotion. You can stop at any time, he said. Emma nodded. I know. Then we'll begin. Her blood flowed out slowly, steadily. Emma closed her eyes. She did not think of the people waiting. She thought of Noah. Of the way he held her when he said, I'll wait. Of the small house. Of the quiet mornings she had left behind. An hour later the bag was full. The doctor made a note. Stable. One word. But to Emma it meant. 1 day had passed. Week 2. News traveled through the hospital faster than official orders. No one spoke openly, but Emma could feel the change. Operating rooms were less chaotic. Arguments in the corridors softened. Cases once labeled no hope were being admitted for treatment again. One evening, Emma saw a young soldier wheeled out of intensive care. His eyes opened in confusion, then filled with tears. He lost 3 liters of blood, a nurse whispered. Last week he would have died. Emma turned away. She did not allow herself to claim that moment. Week 3. Her body began to resist. Emma felt dizzy more often. Some mornings she had to sit for a long time before standing. Doctors reduced the volume, extended the intervals. They honored the agreement, but the cost still showed on her skin. You can stop, one doctor told her. Not yet, Emma replied. That night she dreamed of Noah. He stood behind a thick glass wall looking at her. His lips moved but no sound came out. Emma pressed her hands against the glass, calling him. Between them blood bags appeared more and more, until she could no longer see him. She woke soaked in cold sweat. Week 4. Colonel Kane appeared again, but less often. He never asked if Emma was well. He asked only, "What's today's schedule?" Emma understood. Her presence had become a structural support, and that frightened her more than anything else. She began asking the doctors questions. What were they doing to reduce dependence on her? How far had alternative protocols progressed? First, they avoided answering. Then one finally said, "You make things easier." Emma looked straight at him. War must not depend on one person. The words never entered a report, but they spread. Week 5. A closed-door meeting took place. Emma was not invited, but its outcome affected her directly. The hospital began redistributing blood. They combined Emma's supply with others, accepting higher risk. They tolerated failure rates they once feared. "We can't build the entire system on you," a doctor told her. You were right. For the first time since returning, Emma felt something close to relief. Week 6. The final day. Emma sat in the familiar chair. This time she did not tremble. Not because she was stronger, but because she had reached the end of the path she chose. Blood flowed into the bag. Dark. Quiet. The doctor checked the time. "That's enough." The needle was removed. The bandage applied. "You're done," he said. 3 simple words. But Emma did not stand right away. She sat there, listening to her heartbeat. Still beating. Weaker. But present. Colonel Kane stood at the doorway. "We've implemented the replacement system," he said. "Not perfect, but sufficient." Emma nodded. "Good. You can leave today." Emma rose slowly. "I will." Kane looked at her. "You saved many lives." Emma met his gaze. "No. I gave them time." He did not argue. When Emma stepped outside the hospital, sunlight hit her full in the face. She shielded her eyes and took a deep breath. The air still carried distant smoke. The war was not over. But something had changed. Somewhere within this system, a lesson had been learned. You cannot place the weight of the world on one woman's shoulders and call it necessity. Emma stepped into the vehicle. This time there was no escort. No instructions. Only the road leading back to where Noah was waiting. The road back to the small town had not changed. The same uneven curves. The same sparse trees, their edges scorched by months of drifting smoke. Yet to Emma, everything felt different. She was no longer someone being escorted away, nor someone returning under orders. She was coming back for a simple promise, a promise to Noah that she would return. When the vehicle stopped in front of the small house, evening had already settled in. Pale golden light rested on the low roof, making everything look fragile, as if a strong wind could carry it away. Emma stepped down slowly, her legs unsteady. 6 weeks had left their mark on her body. No open wounds. No bleeding. Just a deep exhaustion that sometimes forced her to pause and remember where she was. The door opened before she could knock. Noah stood there. He was a little taller than when she had left. Thinner. But his eyes lit up in the same way that tightened Emma's throat. "Mom!" He ran into her arms. Emma dropped to her knees, holding him tightly, feeling his familiar weight like an anchor pulling her back into the world. She breathed in the scent of his hair, cheap soap but safe, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe things would not get worse. That night, Emma did not dream. She slept deeply, without images, without explosions, just the sleep of a body that had finally been given permission to stop. The days that followed moved slowly.
No donation schedules.
No casualty reports. No one asking whether she was strong enough today. Emma began doing small things. Cooking meals, washing clothes, tightening a loose wooden chair. Tasks she once thought meaningless, now proof that she was still here. Noah attended a temporary school organized by townspeople. He told her about a new friend, about a bird nesting on the roof, about how he no longer startled at every loud sound. "Are you still afraid, Mom?" he asked one evening as they sat by the window. Emma thought for a long time. "Yes," she said. "But I don't let fear decide everything." Noah nodded, as if that was the answer he needed. News from the front still found its way to Emma, though no one brought it to her directly. She heard it through an old radio at a neighbor's house, through broken conversations at the market. The fighting had not stopped. Blood was still scarce. People were still dying. Some mornings Emma woke with a familiar heaviness in her chest, the old question returning. If I were there, would someone still be alive? Then Noah would call to her from the kitchen, asking if the bread was burned, and the question stepped back. It didn't disappear, but it no longer ruled her. A week after Emma's return, a letter arrived. No military seal. No signature. Just a few handwritten lines. The new system still has many flaws, but it exists. Because of you. Emma folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. She didn't feel proud, just a little lighter. She began working again differently. No battlefield. No emergency surgeries under fire. Emma and a few others opened a small clinic for displaced civilians. She treated wounds, infections, taught other mothers how to bandage injuries, how to recognize when a child needed to be sent farther away for care. Some people recognized her. Some whispered, "That's her." Emma neither confirmed nor denied it. She didn't want her story to become something others leaned on, only to push responsibility even farther away. One afternoon, while changing the bandage of an elderly man, he looked at her and said, "They say you saved an entire hospital." Emma shook her head. "No, I just didn't let it collapse sooner." The man gave a tired smile. "That's enough." At night, after Noah fell asleep, Emma often sat alone on the porch. She looked up at the sky, no longer red with fire, no longer burning, just a deep black scattered with faint stars. She thought about the 6 weeks, not as a triumph, not as noble sacrifice, but as a boundary. She had walked up to it, touched it, and returned without losing herself. There were things Emma had lost forever. The innocence of believing saving lives was always simple. The faith that systems would do the right thing if given enough data. But she had kept what mattered more. The right to say enough. The right to live as a person, not a resource. And Noah? One morning Noah asked, "Do you think the war will end?" Emma looked at him, then down the quiet road outside their home. "Maybe not soon," she said. "But it won't win everything." "Why not?" Noah asked. Emma smiled. "Because there are people who know when to stop. And when to come home." Emma's story did not end with peace. It ended with an ordinary morning. She brewed tea, Noah tied his shoes, the sun rose slowly behind low rooftops. No gunfire. No press. Just life, fragile, limited, but chosen. That morning began like any other. No explosions. No sirens. No urgent news from the front. Emma stood at the small sink, washing the cup Noah had just used. The water ran clear and steady, carrying crumbs of bread down the drain. It was such an ordinary image that, placed beside any moment from the 6 weeks before, it might have seemed to belong to a different life. Perhaps it did. Noah took his time tying his shoes. Emma bent down to help him, the movement familiar and precise. She noticed that her hands shook less now. Not completely steady, but enough that she no longer noticed it every second. "Are you coming with me?" Noah asked. Emma shook her head. "I'm staying at the clinic today." Noah nodded, then hesitated. "Mom, you're not going away again, are you?" The question was light, almost casual. But Emma heard the echo of waiting in it, the fear that had not fully faded. She placed both hands on Noah's shoulders. "No," she said. "I won't leave without telling you again." Noah studied her face for a long moment, then hugged her, quickly, tightly. Emma closed her eyes and breathed in. She didn't know whether the future would make that promise easy or hard to keep, but for the first time it wasn't overshadowed by war. After Noah left for school, Emma opened the small clinic. A young woman arrived carrying a feverish child. An elderly man came to have his bandage changed. Another asked for pain medication. Emma worked slowly, not because she was weak, but because she had learned not to rush life. Each person before her was an individual, not a number to be optimized. At midday, when the clinic grew quieter, Emma sat down and opened an old drawer. The unsigned letter was still there. She didn't reread it. She only rested her hand on it for a moment, like touching a memory that had already closed. The war continued somewhere out there. Perhaps today someone died from blood loss. Perhaps tomorrow, another hospital would overflow. Perhaps the system would still search for special solutions. Emma knew all of that. But she also knew something else. more clearly than any statistic ever placed before her. If a system can only survive by draining a human being dry, then the system is broken at its core. Evening came slowly. Emma closed the clinic and walked home. The narrow street was quiet. A few children were playing soccer, their laughter ringing out, fragile, misplaced, yet persistent amid the times. Emma paused to watch them. She once believed a hero was someone who stood at the front lines, endured the most, sacrificed the longest. She didn't believe that anymore. Now she understood. A hero is someone who knows when to stop before being erased from their own life. Someone who dares to say there are lines that must not be crossed, no matter the cost of criticism, guilt, or lingering doubt. That night, Noah told her about a lesson at school. The teacher had asked, "What makes a person good?" "I said helping others," Noah said. Emma smiled. "And what did the teacher say?" Noah thought for a moment. "She said helping others is good, but knowing when you can't help anymore is important too." Emma froze for a second. She didn't know who that teacher was, but she knew that answer had traveled a long way, from a blood-soaked battlefield, through silent four bags, through a decision once mistaken for selfishness, to arrive in a small, peaceful classroom. Night fell. Emma turned off the light and lay beside Noah. Outside, the wind moved gently.
No gunfire.
Only the ordinary sounds of a world still wounded, still trying to live. She thought about everything that had happened. She had saved people. She had refused to save people. She had returned. And she had walked away. No choice had been entirely right. Only honest. Honest about the limits of the body. Honest about fear. Honest about love for a child. Emma pulled the blanket up around Noah and whispered, though she knew he was asleep, "I'm here." This time, the words were not a promise to an uncertain future. They were a truth of the present. And in a world where war always demands more than people can give, holding on to that, simply remaining here, was a quiet act of resistance, strong enough not to be forgotten.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. See you again.